Thank you for standing by, and welcome to the GVH Grinder Overview and Operations webcast. During today's webcast, attendees will be in listen-only mode. There will be a Q&A session at the end of today's call. If you have a question during the presentation, you may submit it online by entering the Q&A panel. If you're in a full screen view, click the question icon located in the floating toolbar at the lower right side of your screen. Simply type your question into the dialog box and click Send. If you're in the split screen mode, the Q&A panel is already open and is located at the lower right side of your screen. As a reminder, this presentation is being recorded. If you're experiencing technical issues, please contact WebEx Technical Support. Our speaker today is John Kadike, Central Zone Technical Manager. John, please go ahead.
Hi, welcome to the webcast today. My name's John. Today we're going to be going over the use and care of the GVH, the GVH series grinder. There's a GVH 1, 2, and 3. Got to do with the designation on how big the hoppers are. They all work the same though. Basically, you put the beans in the top here, put the bag underneath here, and set the dial to how coarse or fine you'd like the coffee to be ground. You turn it on and you hit the start button. And the start button right here, it's not starting because I don't have a bag in there, so that's a safety feature. We're going to be going over how to clean it every 6 months, take it apart and clean it, and put it back together. It's very easy, it's just this front plate up here. So we'll get started on that first. There are 2 screws, one to the left and one to the right on the front panel here. I'm just going to take these out. And it's spring loaded in there, so you kind of take one screw out a little bit and then the other screw out a little bit more, back and forth, until they'll get loose enough to take out by hand. And it doesn't matter where the dial is set when you're doing this, so just take that out, set it to the side. Next is the cap here. You take the cap off, and inside here is a shear plate. This goes in sideways and catches the shaft extension in the center and the auger on the outside. I should mention, unplug the machine before you do this. This just pulls out, this auger just pulls out, and the shaft extension comes out from the middle. Now, once this is full of coffee grounds, you've been using it for 6 months, this might be sort of stuck in there. Just take a screwdriver and stick down through the hole and just kind of knock it out and it'll come loose. So at this point, you're just going to want to inspect everything and make sure this isn't broken, make sure nothing's broken actually inside. From here, you can kind of get you can see this lever here. After you grind, the coffee grounds kind of get caked up in here a little bit. So you just flip this lever and that kind of knocks them all out and down into the bag. So you just take a brush and kind of brush all this area out. Brush it down. And then put it back together. You can brush all this off. And so I'm going to sort of line this up before I do that. There we go. So when you put that back on, it might not be lined up. See, this slot right here has to be lined up with this slot right here so that this shear plate can go in there. So just hold this piece here and turn the center with the screwdriver until it lines up. Put that in place. And notice it's spring loaded. We'll put the cap back on. And we'll replace the knob in the front plate. You always want to start the screws by hand first too, so you don't cross thread the screws or the housing of the machine. If you get them started pretty easy by hand, then chances are it's not going to be cross threaded. There we go. All right, that's all set. Okay, I'm going to show you how to set the grinder, set the burrs on the grinder, make the burr adjustment. We're going to start, it's this screw right here is the adjustment screw. There are two set screws on the side here. One's here, and you'll see them. So I'm just going to turn the dial and set it to 0. And the set screws down here are a small flat-bladed screwdriver. So I'm just going to unlock that. And unlock that one. Now I'll use the bigger side of the screwdriver here to make my adjustment. A bag switch on it, we're going to have something to put up behind here to mimic the bag being in place. So I'm just going to put a piece of paper up in there. Now I'm going to start it, and with this running, it's going to keep running until I remove this. So just to show that, as soon as I remove it, it stops running. So put that back in place. I'll be turning this center screw to the right until I hear the burrs touch. And when I hear the burrs touch, it's going to be kind of a loud screaming noise. Then you want to loosen the screw just a little bit until you don't hear the noise anymore. So here we go. Turn it back. And so that's my 0 point right there. Check to make sure that's still set on 0, and then just tighten up the set screws here. And we're all done. Okay, just to demonstrate how to grind the coffee, I'm just going to open this here, dump the coffee in. Bag in position. This lever here, there's a little bag grabber here, so lift the lever back, slide the bag in place, and this thing will hold the bag in place while I grind it. So I'm just going to set this up to a medium grind here. And that's all there is to it. Thanks for joining our webcast. We're going to open up to questions now for a little bit. So if you have any questions, just off on the side of your screen, just go ahead and type those in now, and we'll try to get the answers that you need. Okay, so we'll open up for questions now. Anything you need to know or I didn't cover, just type it off to the right there, and we'll see if we can get your question answered. Nobody has any questions at all? Come on. Okay. What was the question? What was the thing about horsepower again? Yeah, I believe this motor has a third of a horsepower. The last time I checked and did the math, that's kind of what it came out to. The importance of that would be how strong the motor is to grind through the beans efficiently. That's a good question about the magnet. I've seen them on our other models. I haven't seen them on this one. My guess is that it probably our existing one wouldn't fit, but I guess I'll have to look into that and I'll let you know. That's right. The is there an option to add the magnet to attract foreign materials? The magnet kit that I've seen is bigger than would fit in here. So that's something I'll have to follow up on and see if we have a new kit that'll fit this machine here. That was designed for our old G1, 2, and 3 series. A heat fuse. It has a reset if the grinder gets jammed or overloads. There's a button right here. There's a cap that goes inside, and you just pry the cap out with a screwdriver, and it pops out, and the button is right here to reset it. So this is a thermal overload for the motor itself. Hopefully that answers your question. Will I be having a webcast on changing burrs? I don't know. We hadn't planned on it, but in the video you saw where I took everything apart, when you have that auger apart, there are just some screws on the burr plate that hold it to the auger, and then inside the machine there are screws that hold the other burrs in there. So once you have this apart, it's a matter of just taking a few more screws out, and it's very easy to do at that point. But I'll tell you what, the burrs on these things last for a really, 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 really long time, so you probably won't need to do that in the lifetime of the grinder. Maybe, but who knows? We have it, I think, warranted for what, 40,000 pounds of coffee or something like that, or 4 years, if I remember right. Anyway, you probably won't have to worry about changing the burrs on these things. But if you do, call us up. We'll walk you through it.
Do you take burrs out for PMs?
No. The question is, do you take burrs out for PMs? No, you don't take them out for preventive maintenance. What you saw in the video that we just broadcast, that's all you have to do. Basically, take it apart, look for broken parts, brush it out, make sure it's clean, and put it back together. That's really all you have to do. It's not necessary to take the burrs out themselves.
If using in a retail application, is it necessary to use grinds cleaner between products?
The question is, in a retail application, to use grind cleaner between products. As far as the machine goes, it doesn't mind that you don't use the cleaner, but you have to understand and expect that you'll get some flavor transfer. So if you have a strong flavor like a hazelnut, and then you go over to a light roast coffee right behind that, you're probably going to get some flavor transfer. Now, there's not going to be that much coffee, that much hazelnut coffee left in the machine or into the new grinds, but it doesn't take much of that strong flavor to transfer over into a non-flavored coffee. So that's sort of tricky to manage in a retail application like a grocery store where you're selling all the different different coffee beans and just letting customers come up and self-service the grinder. It's sort of hard to manage instructing them how to put grind cleaner in there in between, but it's not necessary for the function of the machine. But if you don't do that, you could transfer some strong flavored coffee. Yes. Do we have the Jeopardy music we can play in the background until we wait for another question? No? Okay.
Yeah, I don't have any more questions right now.
Okay. Well, we're going to let this go for just a few more seconds here, but if there are no more questions.
I got one.
Oh, there we go.
Is there a correlation? One, is there a correlation the seed drip size to grind size? Is there a correlation between the is it seed size and drip grind? I'm not sure I follow the question.
The correlation, well, and try to clarify the question. The question has to do with, is there a correlation between the grind size and the drip grind or something like that? So if you could clarify that in your question, but I'll just start talking here for a minute. What we have here are a series of numbers. Instead of drip grind and coarse grind and espresso grind and all that kind of thing. So you can decide for yourself what number of grind you want to use on something. If your regular drip grind is coarser than espresso, but if you're using a larger brewer, you want to go to coarse grind. So there is a correlation, but the correlation is mostly due to preference. So if you have a reference, you could reference a certain number on the dial to what you want, and a certain number on the dial to finer than you want, and so on. But generally, drip grind is probably around 5 on this setting, the way I showed you to calibrate the burr stuff. If you need to get really technical with it and really look into it a lot farther and do some testing, you get a device called a rotap, and it's a series of screens. You put a certain amount of coffee in the top and shake it a certain number of times, and then you weigh the bottom screen, and it kind of tells you that references, because when you grind the coffee, some of it's going to be really coarse, some of it's going to be really fine, and the rest is going to be right in the middle. So what it does is calculate the percentage of the really fine grinds. You weigh that, and that gives you a number that you can go by for the rest of the grind.
Yep, no more questions right now.
No more questions? We'll give it a couple seconds here just to, in case anybody thinks of anything. Well, I'll just tell you before we sign off here, if anybody has any questions while they're operating this thing, I just want to give you the phone number again if you've got something to write with. We have our technical services department available Monday through Friday. Even after hours, they'll pay somebody to call you back, and on weekends, the same thing. So if you're stuck after hours on weekends and you need an answer to a question on anything that says bun on it, we're here to help you. If you got something to write with, you can write the number down. It's 1-800-286-6070. And if you didn't get a chance to write it down, it's on our website, I'm sure. So you can get some help anytime you need it.
Got another question.
Another question, all right.
Is there a way to set the run time to dispense a set volume? Can I run a 30-second time interval for a press?
Okay. The question is, does this machine have the capability to run a certain grind time to get a certain amount of coffee every time? The answer is no. That's a different grinder. We have grinders that do that exact same thing, but this is not the grinder for that purpose. This grinder, when you put beans in here and you hit the button, it runs until it runs forever until you turn it off or you pull the bag out. So it's going to grind everything in the hopper. We do have other grinders available for French press and batch grind and things like that do have timers, and we'll give you the exact, a range of coffee within a half an ounce, I think, but for other purposes. This is not that grinder, so this is a batch grinder for bags of coffee, like 1 or 2 pounds at a time.
Yep, no more questions right now.
No more questions. All right. Well,
nope, got one more. Oh, thanks for clarification.
As soon as I say no more questions, 25.
Yeah. Says thanks for the clarify. We use a trifecta attachment, and I need to weigh the coffee first. So that kind of.
Okay. Referencing the trifecta attachment, that grinds a certain amount of coffee, but again, this is a batch brewer, so you would grind you would weigh your coffee on a scale and then dump those beans. You'd weigh them in bean form and dump them in here and just let the whole thing run through. So you'd need a separate scale for that reason. And that's for the trifecta attachment, which I don't have here, but it's sort of a specialty item for the trifecta brewer. Okay, well, if there are no more questions, or if somebody comes up with one real quick, just because I said that. No? Okay, we're going to close this out then. Thanks for joining our webcast. And you're going to get an email to all the other webcasts that we have coming up and the previous recorded ones. So go on there and look around, because the equipment that you have, you can watch a video for 10 or 15 minutes, you get a lot of information visually that you can see, as people are taking things apart and running things. And again, if you got any questions, just call our tech service department. They'll be happy to clarify that for you and walk you through setup or anything else you need. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.